Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is easily one of the most popular tabletop role-playing games to ever come to the market around the world. But the question today is, does it deserve all the love and attention that it's been getting? And we're going to talk about that after the break. Hello Game Masters and welcome back. My name is Scott and this is Second Rate DMs. If this is your first time here, we do tabletop system reviews as well as Game Master tips and news that's going on in the community. So I've been putting this video off for a while now, to be honest with you, because I know that my take on D&D 5th edition might get us a little bit of aggro. But you know what? We're a small channel anyway, so how many people are really going to see this, okay? But I think it's important that, people need to understand that this game is not what it could have been. And I need to preface that with, I love D&D. You're gonna see some videos and some posts that I put back here of us playing Dungeons & Dragons. We're playing in it right now. We're actually playing an Eberron campaign every other couple weeks, but we're gonna discuss why there's things wrong with that, okay? And we're gonna talk about that as we go through, okay? So we're gonna cover this in the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of way, all right? So let's start with the good, okay? What is good about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition? Well, let's be honest. It is super easy to get into. It has a very simple system. They've broken things down from the previous editions. They made the AC simpler and the attack simpler, and they've taken out a lot of that crunch that we used to use in our classes, in our books, and they've really scrunched it down to a very easy to pick up system that has helped propel it into the popularity that it is today. It's very easy to sit someone down in about 10 minutes, have them make a character, and follow along with what's happening in the game. The class system is also extremely broken down. What they've done here is they have created essentially 2nd edition classes and kits. So we have our main classes, whether it be the fighter, the bard, the barbarian, the sorcerer, the wizard, etc. And then they've given each one of those subclasses, which could have been, and I'll talk about that more later, could have been a phenomenal way to carry out this product's length by creating not more classes, but more subclasses that they could have easily put in together throughout the length of time that this edition has been out. This has been out since Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has been out since 2014. And with that, we've had plenty of years of different products that have come forward. The Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which essentially acted as a player's handbook too, was very good. It had some classes in there that came from other books, but we'll also talk about that in a few minutes, as well as some feats and other things and spells that they basically cherry-picked from one book that you already paid for and put it in another book that you could make, that they made you pay for as well. But again, we'll scoot that further down the line. I will say the Player's Handbook, the core books, the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, and the DMG are all really well put together. I think the majority of the really well-used DM's tools are in the Xanathar's Guide, but the DMG does a great job with new GMs of saying, hey, this is how you create an encounter, this is how you do treasure, and those kinds of things. If you're into modules, and if you're new to Dungeons & Dragons, they've put out a plethora of modules that cover various different worlds and different times. Things like the Tiamat series and the Curse of Strahd and the Giants and the Elementals. I don't know. I don't play modules. But again, we'll get to that content later. So if you're into those kinds of things and those things excite you, then you've had a fantastic ride with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Now is where we get to the part where people are going to be like, what? So here's the thing. I'm going to start off with the system, okay? Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has become so oversimplified that its own fans, whether it be on Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, I don't know, all the places, all over the internet, just Google Dungeons & Dragons and you will find people trying to make D&D 5e something more than it is. They're looking for rules and tidbits and things that can help them make their experience more flavorful than what's presented in the 5th edition handbook. Now, at their own admission, they wrote this book to be kind of vague so that the dungeon masters, the game masters, would have the ability and the power to adjust as they saw fit. The problem is we've always had that ability. We didn't need to make the rules so simple and then use the kind of excuse that it was made so that dungeon masters would have it easier and they'd have, plot stuff, okay? You have an incredible wild sorcerer, or chaos sorcerer, whatever the hell it's called in the player's handbook. But its whole shtick of wild magic depends on your game master. It's a useless class unless you are absolutely sure the person that you're playing with, it's even the person who's running the game, it's worth playing. And there are tons of different rules, questions, and answers that just aren't in this book. To make matters worse, we have things like sage advice and Twitter where one designer says, yes, that is meant to be that way and you guys should play it that way. And then you have another designer that comes up and says, no, that's not the way it's intended. That's not RAI, rules as intended, or rules as written, RAW, for those of you that see those posts. This is not RAW, this is not raw, but it's RAI. And they go back and forth on what they mean to say versus what they meant to say. And it's just written so vague that it becomes an issue at the table. It becomes an issue at the table for newer GMs who have no idea how to make those rules calls because those rules aren't there. And then so they make a call based off their own gut feeling, and then it may end up being maybe too much or too little, whatever it may be. They didn't put in. We play tested this for about a year and a half, D&D Next. And the rules then were clear and concise and cut and clear. And then something happened along the way before the final product where it came out a little too loose, okay? And that's all there is to it. It's just too loose, and it makes things, it's easy for people to get into, but then they start to get confused. Moving on, I have a huge issue with the actual physical product itself. Now, for those of us who picked up some of these as the first edition of printings, I think they fixed this. But for those of us that have some of the first edition printings, my monster manual was printed upside down, and then half of it was covered with some sort of weird printing lines. I did contact them. They did return it. I sent mine back. It wasn't that big of a deal. However, for a product that has only been around for 5 to 6 years, that is unheard of. My PHB my Player's Handbook from 2nd edition, 3rd, and 4th edition, as many times as they've been beaten around, thrown taken on deployments, they're still fine. But then I have this book, which, yes, I could send this book back in, but I'm not going to. Because the year that it came out, I had it signed by people like Tracy and Laura Hickman, R.A. Salvatore, Ed Greenwood. I'm not going to replace this book. But it's falling apart. Look at it. That's what we find. Oh, there it is. Whoop, falling apart. And so I'm sure that I'm not the only one that has, some of these books that may have some memories attached to them. And I know I'm not, because I was in line with hundreds of people who were doing the same exact thing I was, asking them to have this book signed because they were excited about it and they were excited about the new edition. And it hurts this book is falling apart, especially when, like I said, some of my older stuff is still around, still on the shelf, still just as good. But this is a problem. This is not something that should happen to a world-class game. I've got games from people that you've never even heard of that have been on that shelf and been through more than this book has, and they're still together and they still look like great books. This is garbage. I'll be honest with you. This is just trash. This should not happen to a company such as Wizards of the Coast. I don't care that they'll replace it because they're not replacing this book to me. It's there and it's already done. So enough of that ramble. You'll also see some pictures on the back as I'm talking about some other folks that I've asked on the internet to send me some of those pictures of their own books. I've got a friend who his stuff had fallen out and he's rewrapped it in paper bag, kind of like we used to when we were textbooks when we were kids. And I've heard some successful stories and I've heard some fail stories about folks that are overseas and they weren't able to afford to send it back over and those kinds of things. The point is that it shouldn't happen. Okay, this is not that kind of product to be trash like it is. So what about the content that D&D 5th edition has put out over the years? Well, let's talk about it. If you are an individual who loves modules and loves worlds that are created by designers who get paid to do that as a living, there's some phenomenal stuff out there for you. Pretty much the entire line of D&D 5th edition has been designed to work with those modules. Go out there, get them. They're great. At least that's what I've heard, right? Because I don't play modules. That's not my thing. So for me, there's a handful of books that I have purchased from this line, which is unfortunate because I would love to spend my money on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I was so excited. I have my 3 core rule books, of course. I have Xanathar's Guide. I have Volo's. Oh, I'm sorry, and I have that Sword Coast book too, which turned out to be trash. So let me tell you about the Sword Coast book. This Sword Coast book is essentially, all it does is it talks about the Sword Coast, which is fine, but they also advertise there would be new classes and new class options and new race options and those kinds of things. Those race options in that book are just reflavored races. There's nothing new there. And then the class options, most of those are reflavored options with a couple new ones. I think the only one that they did not reprint in Xanathar's Guide was like the Battle Rager, which is a dwarven spike dude, wears armor, hucks himself at people. It's great. So for those of us who were looking for more options for our characters, for our worlds, we didn't get our money's worth out of that one, unfortunately. As I said, Xanathar's Guide is really good. The monster manuals are great, Volo's and the other one that I don't have yet. Those have some great options in them as far as your monsters go. But I'll tell you right now, looking over at my shelf, I have more third-party books for 5th edition than I do actually from Wizards. Things from Kobold Press, things from Nord Games, some really good third-party products that have been put out there to expand whether the monster. If you don't have Tome of Foes or the latest one, Tome of Beasts or something along those lines, the one they just kickstarted not too long ago, if you don't have that book, go out and buy it right now. It is better than any book that has been put out for 5th edition. It really brings a lot of great flavor to your table, as well as some really scary monsters to kind of toss at your players. They haven't put out any content. I don't care about modules, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are like me that don't care about those. I don't care. I mean, that's great. You know, you have Storm King's Thunder and whatever. I don't know. There's nothing there. 6 years, nothing. Nothing. And I understand trying to avoid bloat. I get it, right? We had 3rd edition and we had 4th edition that was full of absolute bloated material that by the time stuff was coming out so fast that by the time it was coming out, the older stuff beginning to get cycled out and the power difference was a little off, right? Or very off in some cases, right? We're talking about the Spell Compendium of 3rd edition. But you have nothing. There's nothing there to work with at all. Nothing. And your people are starving for attention, starving for material from you, and we get nothing. We get the UA, the Unearthed Arcana, which used to be a part of a magazine as well as some printed material. I have an Unearthed Arcana book over there for 3rd edition. Basically the stuff that they play test before they put it out in the wild for us to do. Most of that stuff never sees print, unfortunately. And some of it is so bad and uninspiring that I've seen better work from 7th graders who can do basic math. It's just sad. It's just so damn sad. I mean, we're playing in a Eberron campaign right now because we do like the world of Eberron, but we don't necessarily like modules. So what are people have been asking for things other than Faerun for so many damn years now that I don't even know what to say. The public has been asking you forever to stop selling Forgotten Realms. It's become so overcomplicated and overconvoluted from, spell plagues and second disasters and cataclysms and times of troubles and everything else. People want new worlds to play in, which is why Eberron was so popular in 3rd and 4th edition. So what does 5th edition do? We'll give them a PDF. We'll give them a PDF. That'll make them happy. A PDF. I don't want a damn PDF. I want a book. I want a big book that has all the feats and the dragon marks and the spells and the things that make Eberron and items. I don't want a crappy little PDF that doesn't talk about much and say, well, here you go, guys. This is what you wanted. That's not what we wanted. That's not what we asked for. It's not what we've been asking for years. So at some point in time after 2014, after We're big Gen Con goers. If you've watched the channel a lot, we're part of the MU Skulls, and we go to Gen Con. We do games every year. We hope to see you this year. Sometime Wizards just disappeared. Now Magic is still there, but Dungeons and Dragons, D&D used to have this big, huge space in the vendor hall, and then they were moved over to another hall, and then they had like this little tiny space, and then they're gone. They disappeared faster than my father did when I turned 4. I have no idea what the hell happened to them. They're gone. We have no Wizards of the Coast presence at Gen Con at all. Gen Con, Geneva Con, Gary's convention. Now, granted, they have Gary Con now, but you know the thing that really started, you know, Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons, there's no support for anymore. And it's sad. It's sad to see other companies coming in and taking that light from them. Because I'll be honest, I love Dungeons and Dragons. I love it. And it hurts. I'm so mad that I have to make this video. I'm so mad that it's finally so freaking popular. And this is, in my personal opinion, not the best they could have done with this product. I wholeheartedly, and I'm very interested if Mercer, because this is really the Mercer effect, right? The Mercer effect, as well as that stupid nerd show that has nothing to do with nerds. Third Rock, no, that's older than that. Whatever, the nerd show. You know what I'm talking about, right? So if they had played another game, if Mercer played Call of Cthulhu, if Critical Role was Call of Cthulhu or any other game, maybe Pathfinder, would Dungeons & Dragons still be as popular as it is today? Because I'll tell you now, the thing that makes Mercer and his crew attractive is their phenomenal storytelling, not the rules. The rules are, meh, they're pretty whatever. I've played games by designers you've never heard of that have better rules than Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I mean, hell, let's talk about the inspiration mechanic. Oh, so uninspiring. Home tip for you, if you go onto Amazon or go to Paizo, you can buy the Paizo plot twist deck. And basically they are cards that allow the players to manipulate the story in some way, the story. And so when they ever get inspiration, you can give them this story card that allows them to change the story down the line. With that being said, inspiration is an awful mechanic. Advantage, disadvantage, started well, but then did some funky things, and now it's just the replacement mechanic for everything. God, I don't know what the fuck else do I say? Moving on, let's talk about the things that really brings our game into the 21st century, okay? PDFs, okay? So yes, I know that, you know, in the past with 3rd edition, that PDFs were this awful thing that they got pirated and, you know, they got sold all over the internet, and then Wizards lost a lot of money. I get it. But do you know who sells PDFs with almost every book they sell? Paizo. That's right, Paizo. And some of their stuff gets pirated. I'm sure it does. But there are ways to keep that clean. You can do locked down PDFs. You could do, I don't know, strict purchases. Who cares, right? If they buy a book, give them a PDF. If they want a PDF, make it half the freaking cost, okay? I'm not going to pay $50 for damn PDFs. That's ridiculous. And so leaning into that, we're going to talk about Codename Morningstar. I'm not sure how many of you actually did the playtest, but there was this thing called Codename Morningstar. And D&D 5th edition was going to be built from the ground up with online stuff. Like you'd be able to have character generators and character sheets and make stuffs and, you know, all the online stuff that D&D Beyond does now, we were promised with Codename Morningstar. Now, I get it. I don't think that Morningstar was I forget the name of the company that was doing it. Cursed something or other. They fell through. They failed to hit the mark completely. And then Wizards had to drop them and then pick up whoever's doing D&D Beyond now. I get that, okay? These guys were bad, so they went to a new contract. That's fine. I completely get that. What I don't completely get is going from this will all be here and free and with your stuff from the beginning to now we're going to make you pay twice as much for the same content. That's crap. That is so crap. And I'm sure that has nothing to do with D&D, right? And that's more of a Hasbro decision. ways of marketing and then all that. But I already own a player's handbook. I already own a player's handbook that's falling apart. I already paid $50 for it. I'm not going to pay another $25, $30 in D&D Beyond to get access to things that I already have freaking access to. Nope, not happening. Never. If there are people that are coming into the game that don't have these books, that's great. And they're interested in that, go for it. Go ahead and buy it. That way you have it. There's no point in having two of them if you feel like you're going to use Beyond more. But you're not going to charge me twice for books. In back and fourth edition, their online component had a subscription model. I believe it was $7 something a month. And for that $7 something a month, I was able to go in there, create a character, build a character, and books that came out were added to it. It was great. It worked well. I paid for it without any concern or issue because it was a well done product. All the rules I needed were there. All the books I needed were there. Everything was just right there for me and my players. D&D Beyond is a scam. And I know that a lot of you out there are going to be like, well, but I use it and I love it. And that's fine. I'm glad that you use it and you love it. But I'm telling you now, if you bought the same books twice, you got scammed, man. Like, you just did. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Facts is facts. Scams is scams. And it's a money grab, and that's what they did with it. I know this sounds like a little bit of a rant video, and it is kind of a rant video because I'm so mad at Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition because I love Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. We play tested it to our heart's content. We even did a podcast thing that we never actually put out into the world, but we loved what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be this completely module system of where, people that don't like making characters and people that do like making characters can sit down at the table and get the same amount out of it. I know that it's hit this high popularity amongst folks out there. Some of you out there watching right now, you love Dungeons & Dragons. But Dungeons & Dragons for a lot of people isn't Dungeons & Dragons, it's roleplay. But this is their first taste of the tabletop role-playing scene. And so they love Dungeons & Dragons, even though Dungeons & Dragons is not the best system for role-playing. There are tons of better systems out there. Fate, Paranoia, anything done by Monty Cook, Numenera, Cypher, No Thank You Evil for the little ones. There are just better games out there for role-playing than Dungeons & Dragons. I know I'm not the first person to say that, and I'm sure I won't be the last. Dungeons & Dragons is a game that we've all grown up and we've all loved. It is immensely popular right now, and with that being said, you're seeing a lot of other companies that are smaller who are making better products all across the board. Like, they have their own online systems, and they have books that stay together longer than 2 weeks, and they respond to their community, and they put out content that's useful for everybody, and they get ignored. They get ignored because Wizards is this huge shadow that's overcasting them. Starfinder is an incredibly fantastic game. Pathfinder 2nd edition has been playtesting this last 8 months or so. To me, I find it as a nice happy medium between the crunchy of Pathfinder and the rules lightness of 5th edition. It's a nice little balance in the middle that gives a way to both sides. And I encourage you to go out and, one, check out Pathfinder 2nd edition, but two, check out some of these other games that we reviewed on this channel. There are so many good games out there for you to waste your time on just Dungeons and Dragons, especially 5th edition. The good news is that 5th edition has brought everyone together. It's brought some folks from 2nd edition, 3rd, 4th, 5th, first, and they've brought everyone together under the same umbrella. There are elements from the old, there are elements from the new, and they have tried to do their best to make a good product. And the base product is good. The rule system is good. They just haven't spent the time wisely the past 6 years to flesh out the system to where it could be so amazing, so incredible, and that hurts. It absolutely hurts. So with that being said, this kind of ends my review with the good and the bad and the ugly of D&D 5th edition. I know you're going to roast me, and that's okay. I don't mind. Like I said, we're a small channel. But if you like real, honest reviews from people, from gamers, from game masters, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. come back. You know, I've got other reviews of other games. I've got more stuff coming in the mail that we're going to be working on. You know, I don't sugarcoat reviews because I love gaming, and I know you guys love gaming, but don't let a bad game get a good rap because it's popular, okay? We should expect more from Wizards of the Coast as the granddaddy on the field. They need to learn that we won't just accept subpar products because they're popular. A lot of these products are subpar. That 5th edition DM screen, that was a piece of garbage. The miniatures lines they've been putting out, they're okay, but I mean, I don't want to pay $20 for like a thing. They've done so much better in the past, and I think they've moved from this company that really cared about what is going on with the people and the gamers and the gaming industry to what's going to sell the most, what's going to make the most. And eventually, and I know you guys don't want to hear this, there will be a 6th edition. There has to be. There will always be. There will always be another edition of D&D, and hopefully, if we listen to us and these general complaints and suggestions, maybe 6th edition will be the next game that can bring us all together. We're already starting to come apart at different seams. People that just love role play and people that just love the combat, and where they're being split apart there. We need to be able to have a good game, Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point, so I'm going to finish this video, finish my beer, and have a great week, and we'll see you guys later.